I recently met up with Michael in a Birmingham hotel, and I began by asking him how he was feeling.
Yeah, I'm really well. I'm okay. In what way do you mean okay? Like, as opposed from one extreme to that, yeah.
Well, just the fact that the media's had such a go at you, and you've gone through this whole turmoil after what happened. Everybody's asking you difficult questions. Yeah. Are you okay? Yes,
I am okay. Actually, I'm really well, because what I did when I went to New Zealand... Bill Kenwright, who owns the production of Scrooge, he said, my mum said to me, she said, the trouble with Michael is, she said, he's made me happy all my life, but he's never given any time to himself, and that's what I needed to do. And I did that for 3 years there. A friend of mine said years ago, the trouble is, he said, you know, when you learn to make love yourself, you'll be all right. I said, I've no perception of what loving yourself means, and then I found out all it is taking care of yourself and giving time to yourself, and not, you know, people pleasing everybody else, and you end up with nothing yourself. I did that. It put me in a good place. There was a while, I know what you mean, where I was and I said and I wasn't that great, or I'm still getting better at it on a one-to-one situation, being interviewed. And what I've done in my life is to work to a mass crowd.
When we used to watch you on Saturday nights on ITV, and when we saw you in those live shows, you had such a great vibrance, and you just seemed to love it. Is this still the same passion today?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's been proved with Scrooge. You know, it's given me the chance to go exactly back where I was, and I think you should all the time. So I've had a bit of a roller coaster life, to say the least. There are a lot of similarities to the stories of Scrooge, except I'm generous, he's not. Or he isn't at the beginning. That you learn to realise that it's not, nobody's personally having a go at you, although it can seem like that. This is just it's my journey and my life, and you should go, right, this is the negative side, there's a reason it's going to come right in the end. And I've never lost a passion for what I do.
You've certainly had an interesting life and a huge rise to fame. I mean, you really were the biggest thing on TV for a long time. Yeah. Do you think those days will ever return in terms of TV, or does it not matter now?
I love what I do. Of course I want to be out there. And people say, do you want to get back to telly? Well, of course I do. When I used to answer that question, I used to go, well, you know, if it comes along, and I think to myself, why don't you just say, no, I want to be there, and I'd love to be there. Obviously, I can't cast myself. That's for others to do. And, like, Bill Kenwright went, no, I'm going to use him. I'm going to put in this huge investment for him. And, you know, he, like anything, there's no guarantees, but he went down that road, same as the people who asked me to do the book. That's a huge investment. I wrote the book. And the DVD, the Strike It Lucky DVD.
It's got to be something to do with the public, because without that, I don't think you're anything, really, are you? Because there aren't many TV people can handle the public.
No, the public, that's been the sum total of me and my career and what I'm all about. Actually, there's a lot of people in the business who are really good at what they do. I would never take that away from them. But they don't actually like people. Now, there's a lot of people like that. And I actually like people. All people fascinate me. I don't care what background they're from. They just fascinate me. And I think that came across in my work. And I don't think I'd have got the sort of career I had or have without that contact with people and being so brutally honest. And the one thing, I broke some rules as well. The old school, when they used to watch me in the early days, go, oh, you're the comedian, you know, the punter on the show the other day, they came back and got a laugh over you, and you allowed it to... I said, well, why not? Why shouldn't they get the laugh? When you make eye contact... I remember being interviewed by Wogan years ago when I was a new boy on the block, and it was the Wogan show. And he asked me a question, and I was looking at him in front of a live audience, and I realised he wasn't looking at me or listening to what I was saying. And no disrespect to Terry, probably he was in some other planet at the time, and I realised he was looking at his cue card, and I waved my hand in front of him, and he went, oh, stab me vitals. I said, I'm over here. I'm here. And he didn't really know what I was talking about, and I just learned from then on that to be honest is the best thing.
One of the things that I loved about you, particularly with the live stuff, is that you come across that you're a liability and that you're dangerous, but actually you're not. You throw people out of your audience, but they're in on it that it's a gag, and therefore it's okay.
You have followed my career, haven't you? I used to open the show, my live show, because a lot of people, because I've been in telly so long, forget that I started out as a live performer, stand-up. You know, in the early days, I used to get paid off and dying on my backside, loaded in the clubs, my training ground, and doing the stag do's, hen parties, working men's clubs. I won a talent competition and started doing the clubs, and I remember getting paid off yet again at another club, and I said to the bloke, I was 19, I said, I could have gone to Lambda. He said, you should have done your crap. You know, but I still got up the next day and went back for more.
Let's start at the beginning. What were you like as a child?
Actually, I was a very good kid. Well, according to my mum, my brother was the one who misbehaved all the time. Apparently, I think maybe I was just playing with my mum. And I'm the youngest. So the youngest one is always accused. I mean, I was brought up, Dad left when I was 11. We were poor, as in no roof over our head, but we're pretty near it. My mum did 3 jobs in a day, all week, just to keep 3 of us together, otherwise we'd have been taken away. But you always get accused as being the last born of being spoilt because the others are grown up and you get pocket money off them. But as a kid, the humour started very early, and I just found it was very powerful. I wasn't the best fighter, so if I needed anybody sorting out, Mickey Jarman did it for me because I made him laugh. But the thing you've got to watch with comedians, and people do it even if they're not comedians, a lot of us as human beings, what we do is we use humour to cover up what's really going on in our head, and that's where you've got to watch people like myself and that, who can make, everything's fine, and inside they're feeling like crap, you know, they don't feel well at all.
I also think now more than ever, people find it very hard to distinguish between a person and their act. For example, Ken Dodd isn't walking around all day going, ha-ha, missus.
By Jove, that's where he goes round. You're talking about somebody else.
No, he just go, ha-ha. I've seen him do it.
Does he?
Yeah.
Is that an impression? By Jove.
But he does do the ha-ha bit on the end.
Does he?
You're not convinced, are you?
No, I'm not at all. Next time I see Ken, I said, do ha-ha for me, Ken, go on. Without the teeth.
Talking of which, we're in a showbiz hotel today, and as I was coming through reception, Cherie Blair walked past me.
Did she? What's she doing here?
I don't know, I thought she was with you.
No, Zoe Lucker's with me. You know Zoe?
Really?
There she is. She's upstairs.
Why didn't I get to interview Zoe instead of you?
You want to interview Zoe? Zoe!
She'd be far more attractive, wouldn't she? I mean,
well, I'll go and talk to Cherie Blair, you talk to Zoe.
I think that's the way forward. Can I move on to my next question about being on TV and the pressure of being funny when you've got all these people around you trying to make you more funny and telling you how to be funny when, of course, you've been it for 10 or 20 years. Did that affect you, or were you just able to disregard all their opinions?
Well, difficult at the beginning. I tell you what, used to get a good example of that. Whenever I don't do many, but whenever I do, you get asked to do an advertising campaign. They pay you this ridiculous amount of money. They get you into the studio and remove everything that they booked you for and say, could you say the product like this, and can you do it like that? And, and I remember one campaign I said, and I was really pushing it because there was a lot of money involved, and I said, don't you think you should get somebody else? I did have my fingers crossed under the table. And I said, well, you've booked me for Michael Barrymore, and now you're asking me to be somebody else. So it fits the product. Why have you booked me? And that does happen a lot. Or they go, you say this here, then you say this there, and then you do your Barrymore bit. I said, what's my Barrymore bit? Well, those things you do. I said, well, I've got to have a rough idea of what you want me to do. What is it that I do that you want? So I fill the gaps. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, that is difficult. It is difficult.
You are legendary for your appearances on them, and it was always a great moment when we knew you'd won an award. There's one great example with Jonathan Ross where you dislodged his telly, and it's just those brilliant moments that you don't really get now. Nobody seems to be willing to take a risk in case somebody doesn't like it in a newspaper and says nasty things about them.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because the TV bosses used to go, could you possibly just go up and say thank you very much and come back down again? There's two trains of thoughts here. There's the crowd that go, that's what it's all about, sending it up. And then there's others. You get another journalist who go, or interviewer go, don't you think that was terribly cruel what you did to Jonathan? Well, I'd say, hang about, what did I do to Jonathan? I said, Jonathan, can you manage to do an evening without an orgy cue? Pulled his orgy cue out, ripped it out, threw it over the back of the set. Now, but, if you know the business, he's got another large one up there. There was a commercial break. They put it all back. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that at the time, but I knew he wouldn't be floating around with nothing.
OK, we're going to move on and talk about the next part of your life, which was a million miles away from show business and award ceremonies. I want to talk to you about the death of Stuart Lubbock. We should say that you were found innocent of everything in a court of law. But I think it's fair to say you probably didn't come out of it very well in terms of your PR and your reputation and the public's perception of you. Two very honest questions for you. Do you think you reacted badly to it? And secondly, do you think the press gave you a far more difficult time than you deserved?
It's a combination of both. I mishandled the situation. Nobody's trained in how to deal with tragedy. When you consider I've been in people's front rooms all my life, making them happy, how do you deal with remorse on a public scale? It's not something, that's where I did get into the and ahhing thing, and then not feeling should I say this, shouldn't I say that, is it right to say this, instead of just saying it. I can do it now. And then what compounded that as well is the outrageous reporting by, not all of them, but a lot of the media, turning it into something that wasn't quite what it was, and to the extreme of outrageous headlines and front pages. And it was almost too juicy for the editors to go another route. The Independent was the only one who went, there's something wrong here, this is not right, and wrote the facts. But the Independent, as good as the paper as it is not strong enough to override, tabloids that sell millions of papers. Basically they wrote me off. Now, I've been through many times in my life when I've been written off. I must be on an elastic or something, because, the first time I went to rehab in Baltimore, I got blown apart by the tabloid there, and I thought, oh, this is it. I said, Sam Ferrier, goodbye career. Public supported me coming out, again, not... if that had been 10 years earlier, maybe I would have lost my career. Decades have changed all our lives, for the good, some for the bad, but, And then my divorce, when I was asked, what do you have any regrets in life? I said, well, I don't go down the road of regrets. My life's my life, it's my journey. But I would say not having children is a regret. I would love to have had those, but we couldn't. And not having an amicable divorce. The fact that it was so battling in front on a public stage. And I suppose the combination of that, and it took time for me to come through to realise, hang about, I'm not standing for this anymore. It's not fair. I don't see why I should be bashed from pillar to post for something I'm not responsible and I have nothing to do with. And it's just convenient because of my surname to always put it in the headline, whether it's got nothing directly to do with me. And then in the subtext about halfway down, you can, oh yes, of course we know he wasn't responsible and had nothing to do with it. Well, people don't read. When you're driving past, you'd see a really strong headline that's really damning you. That's what goes into people's minds, and it's taken a long period to, I had to deal with me first. That's why I went to New Zealand. I didn't run away. I was at home in this country staring at brick walls. It wasn't healthy. I'd have ended up 6 foot under, and it was a survival thing. But I'm not fearful of it anymore, and I do agree with you, I perhaps didn't deal with it very well at all, but then I haven't got a book on how to deal with life.
Is there any worse feeling in the world than opening a newspaper in a morning and seeing your picture on the front page and a headline that is not positive towards you?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think all the years, I've had many years of press and following to that intensity and, being followed all the time by motorbikes, being followed by cars, outside my house all the time, helicopters over the house taking shots, so your garden's given any sanctuary. It's not, I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but I dealt with it, and I dealt with it in the way I needed to. Sometimes I struggled. I did wake up one morning and thought, I don't know, I'll be better for out of this. And I thought to myself, what the hell are you talking about? Just put yourself in the shower, put your clothes on, and just put yourself in the day. And, I'm not going to make any excuses anymore for keep having to, go down a road of going, well, I'm not sure, and just be very positive. I have to get on with my life, as does everybody else.
And moving on to Big Brother, where people got to see you again after all the bad stuff that had gone on. It was the first time we got to see you. Was that a mistake, or are you glad you did it?
Well, at first I said no to it, but I've got to say, just quite clearly, I was glad I did it. Absolutely. It was really intense in there. Most of the crying at the beginning was me reacting to how fantastic the public were for when I went in. It was like rehab with cameras, and I've done enough of those.
Michael Barrymore talking to me recently in Birmingham about his life and career.
The Alex Belfield In Conversation podcast.